how do they know? How can they detect? What's the symptomology for
Oh,
a dysfunctional thyroid?
so much,
For?
Zora.
You mentioned weight gain or weight loss. That's one of them. I think some people may not even make that connection.
Yeah, you know what? So typically, if it's a typical situation, it's going to be weight gain. When we're talking about weight loss, that's hyperthyroidism. And that is often connected to Graves' disease, which is another autoimmune condition. Excuse me. And often, so Graves is a totally on the other side of the spectrum. However, and people usually associate with Graves' disease with heart palpitations, weight loss, jittery, unable to sleep. You can have Graves in the ocular area. So the eyes are bugged out more. So this is definitely more linked to the autoimmune condition Graves. That's hyper. I've been on that end of the spectrum and it's not pretty. Like
You've
that's
been
the
on both
anxiety.
ends.
Both ends, both ends. But I had a lot of issues with regulation. And then being a nutritionist, I mean, God help my endocrinologist because he's like, what are you trying now, Sandy? Right. And so I have done certain things to try. I mean, I know we might get into this, but like to grow back my thyroid. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. So I've done things and I have thrown myself to the other end of that spectrum. So we're talking needing gel to close my eyes so that I could sleep because my eyes were that severely bugging out and dry. And so that's one end. But the majority of women that I even see have the other end, and that is hypothyroidism. Depression, also anxiety can come into play there as well. Hair loss, weight gain. When you feel like you've always got swollen and puffy hands, that's another sign. There are, oh my God, I've seen clients who go in to their doctors with those symptoms and come out without proper thyroid testing and a prescription for anti-anxiety or that type of medication. I've actually seen that more than once. And it's like, hold on a minute. So all they checked was TSH, which is a thyroid stimulating hormone, which is not even technically a thyroid hormone. It's the hormone, it's still important, but it's the hormone in the pituitary gland to signal to your thyroid, hey, time to make some T4, right?
So what testing should someone do if they're suspected? And I mean, the problem is that they're trusting their doctor, but if you want to challenge, and what would they ask the doctor to do?
So I would 100% say T4. Sorry, let's go back. TSH, number one, very important. And most women, most people feel better and best between a 1 and a 2 in TSH. The range can be very wide. So it can be here in Canada, I think it's 0.3 all the way up to 5.0. And this is in Canadian measurements. I'm not sure if the US or Europe is the same, but you can probably find that out on Google. You can do the conversion. But I know for myself, I've had undetectable TSH. So if you could go below 0, it was below 0. And that's where the jitteriness, the heart palpitations, but I feel wonderful when I'm just under a 2, anywhere around 1.5, I feel great, balanced energy. I can exercise, my weight is stable, that sort of thing. Then, so that's the first measurement. Free T3, that is free. Sorry, I'm going to start with T4. Free T4. Free T4 is really important because it is the initial amount of thyroid hormone that must be converted to T3 to the active form. So you need free T3, free T4, both. Then, in order to know whether or not your issues are related to an autoimmune disease, you need to know antibodies. It's very important. But then what can happen is all those things can look beautiful. But then if you're not checking reverse T3, which is often very high in people with chronic stress, you're missing an important piece. Here in Canada, they don't check that. So I always explain reverse T3, like, you know, back in the day when we used to go to the bars, you'd have the bouncers at the bar that wouldn't let you in. So reverse T3, when it's really high, those are the bouncers, and they are blocking your cells. So that thyroid hormone can't get into the cell. So everything else can look okay, but if that reverse T3 is high, we got a problem, right?
What would that problem be? Like Hashimoto's? Oh, it shows it's a stress issue.
Right? Yeah. So everything else might look okay, but if all those beautiful thyroid hormones aren't getting to the cellular level and getting into the cell, then you're going to experience issues. You'll probably be experiencing lingering, I call them lingering thyroid issues. So I've been there too. And that could be where you're just not feeling yourself. Like you just feel a little more tired than usual. You just feel like, you know, oh, I feel a little bit more bloated and swollen, and I'm retaining water. So, you know, it's a really delicate balance, the thyroid.